Hi and welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial I'm going to be giving you a beginner's guide to OpenOffice for Calc Spreadsheets. So this is very similar to Microsoft Excel. It's a free piece of software you can download, and it has various applications like Word, Excel, PowerPoint presentations and so forth. So the first thing we need to do is actually get access to the software. We need to go to Google and just type in OpenOffice, and you're going to get this website pop up, openoffice.org. We're going to click on the link and we're going to select the second option here. I want to download OpenOffice, and I'm going to click on this green bar at the top, and that will take us to this SourceForge website, and we'll see this timer ticking down, and as it gets to 0 it's going to give us the option to actually download the file. The file is 137 megabytes, so it's not a small file, it's pretty large, but it shouldn't take too long to download. I'm going to click the save button. If for any reason that pop-up doesn't show, you can use this direct link here to download it. It will do the same process, but this is just another way of accessing it. As it's downloading, I can see it's going to take a bit of time. I've already actually downloaded the software and installed it, so I'm going to actually cancel this download. But after you've finished downloading it, just launch the application, follow the basic instructions to get the software installed, and then you should be able to access it from your computer. As default, when OpenOffice installs, you should get an icon here with the OpenOffice logo, which will give you access to the software. It's also located on your start bar. If it's not there, then it will be in all programs in this OpenOffice folder. Version 4 we're working on right now. So I'm going to select this blue icon. It just says OpenOffice. This is the default sort of way of accessing OpenOffice, and it allows you to get access to drawing, database, spreadsheets, text documents and presentations. I'll be doing some tutorials on all of these applications, but for now we're going to focus on a basic tutorial for spreadsheets. So I'm going to click the spreadsheet, and it's going to open up the Calc application, OpenOffice Calc, and as default it's going to be called untitled document, and we should really save this document, give it a good file name, save it somewhere so that we can reference it later, and it's good to really save your documents before you start editing them. I'm going to click on File and Save As, and I've got this file. I've already saved this file once already, but it's called OpenOffice Calc Tutorial. I'm just going to overwrite this. There's nothing in there at the moment. I'm just going to click Save and just overwrite it, but you would need to give your one a new file name as and when you save the document. So I've saved this document, and really, you know, this is a real beginner's guide, so I just want to explain what you can see and how we could possibly use this application within our business to help do calculations or document information. So we're gonna build a spreadsheet and then see how we can manipulate that spreadsheet and what we can actually do to the data in a basic method, basic view. We'll do more advanced tutorials later, but this is really a beginner's guide. So at the top here we can see the alphabet A, B, C, D going all the way across, and if we were to scroll across we can see the whole alphabet is at the top, and then it goes to double A, B, A, C, and it will keep continuously incrementing across. I won't say it goes infinitely long, I guess there are restrictions to everything, but you know, it's going to go pretty far. You're going to have as many column headings as you need, or is going to be necessary. I can't see you needing more than what's on offer here. And down this side here we can see the row numbers. These will always increment by 1, and they're almost always continuous. You know, you can put thousands of rows of data in here, and it's just a way of storing and collecting and sorting information within this spreadsheet. So if I were to click on this particular cell here, the reference for this cell would be A1, and this one would be B1 and C1, and this will be A2, and this will be B2, and so forth. So any cell that I click on is really referenced by the column letter and then the row number E10. This will be cell E10. Each one of these blocks we can call them a cell. So these cells can hold different types of information. They can hold just numbers, they can hold currency values, they could hold just text labels. It's really down to you how you want to use these fields, but typically once you set a column to a certain type of field, then normally that type of data will be stored there. So if I were to make this particular column a currency column, then when I put the data in here, it's going to show the pound sign or the euro sign depending on what currency you're using. So as a good example, we're going to build a little Excel spreadsheet, and it's just an imaginary one, we could say, just made up, and we're going to use that to filter out data and show you some of the tools and the facilities that we can use within openoffice. First thing we really want to do, and typically you do this in majority of the spreadsheets you're going to be working on, is give these cells some type of label. They need to mean something. At the moment, A, B, C and D doesn't really mean anything. So I'm going to try and work out what I want to put in these cells. The first thing I really want to put in here is going to be a date. So I'm going to type in date here. And the next thing here I want to put in is a description, some type of description. And in the next cell, I want to put in maybe a price. And in fact, there's probably something else that I want to put in here. Let's just say, for example, I wanted to put something in between these. Imagine if I forgot to put something in between A and B. I needed something else there. We can easily go to the B column, right click and insert column, and it will always put the column to the left. So it's going to move whatever was in B to the C field and move C to D and so forth, and give us this blank space. And in this blank space, I think I'll put in something like invoice number. So we'll have some type of invoice number. So we've got these headings here. At the moment, they're not really formatted in any way. They're just really text fields, you could say, just general text fields. They just hold general information, and we want to really make these fields function in a specific way, we could say. First thing I want to do is save my document. It's always good to save as you go along, and if you don't want to keep clicking on this save button, you can always press Control S on your keyboard. That's a nice shortcut to remember, Control S. As you're working, you can just press Control S to save your document. That's a good thing to do. And in this these four headings, I actually want to distinguish them from the rest of the data. I just want to make them bold. So the easy way to do that is use your mouse. You can drag along, holding down the left mouse button, and highlight these four fields and click the bold button. And now we can just really think of these as titles, and our data is going to go below this. So in this first set of fields, in this first particular field, I want to set this one and probably the subsequent fields below it as a date type field. So for now, I'm just going to drag my mouse down to rows. I'm going to hold the mouse down and I'm going to select this many. So I'll left click on the first one, hold the mouse down and drag down to row 30, let's say. And this is an example. I just want to set the first 30 to a date type field. So I'm going to highlight them, then right click on them and select format cells. And this pop-up is going to appear, and I want to select the date, and then I can display the date in various formats. Some are suitable for American date format, some are suitable for UK date format, and we're going to use this format here. This is a typical UK type date format. This is the format I like to use. So we're going to stick with this default format. I'm going to click OK. You can see nothing's really happened to this field. It is as it was before. But what I'm going to do is just type in, let's say, the 12th of the 7th, 2013. Let's make that the 7th, 07/2013. And when I click out of the cell, it's going to pretty much format itself. So if I right click on it now and go format cell, if I were to select a different type of date format and click OK, all is to put the 12th of July 2013, but that's what I typed in. So I can continuously type in my dates in this format here. So I can go to the next one and type in, let's say, the 14th of the 7th, 2013, and then when I click out of that cell, it's actually the old format. Let's right click. We can see here, if I were to select this one again, it's going to change it to that type of style, that formatting style. It's not really what we want. We want them to all be consistent. So to make this whole column consistent, I'm going to click on the A which will highlight the whole column. It's infinitely long. It's going to highlight and format all of these cells. I'll right click on them, format cell, and I'm going to select the date and tick that option and click OK. And then here is these dates listed. You can see the date label didn't change. The software understands that really this is not a date. It cannot format into a date, so it's going to leave it as its default text. But every other cell going down in this column is going to have this date format applied to it. I'm going to save this. So another way of generating these dates, imagine if you wanted to generate, I don't know, 30 dates, and you don't want to sit there typing each one, but it happens that you want to have them in a sequence. So the 14th, the 15th, the 16th, the 17th, and so forth. You see this little black box here in the right hand bottom corner. When you move your mouse over it, it's going to turn into a little cross, the mouse cursor. If you hold your mouse down, the left button, and drag down, you can see that it's going to make this sort of red box. I'm going to move down to the 30th, and I'm going to let go. And you can see, we call this series filling. So it's filled in the dates for me. It's assumed that because I started on the 14th, the next date will be the 15th, the 16th, the 17th, 18th, and so forth. That's sometimes a useful little function if you want to put dates into a spreadsheet quickly and they're happen to be a number sequence. Then that's a quick way of doing that. It's not really what we're doing today, but that's just a nice little feature I can show you there. I'm going to delete these. I'm going to keep the 15th. I'll delete the rest. So we've got 3 dates in here, and we need some invoice numbers. So, however you generate your invoice number, it's really entirely down to you. But I'm just going to say something like invoice 001, and then we'll have invoice 002, and then invoice 003. Now, because this particular field is a combination of letters and numbers, there's no real, you can't really define these fields as something specific in these formats. It's not a percentage, it's not a currency, it's really just a number, and it's a general number. There's a text option here as well, but you can leave this as its default number, general. This should be fine. It shouldn't be a problem. Again, with the invoice numbers, typically these invoice numbers, whenever you start with the first one, the second one, the third one, you expect this one to be invoice 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, you can use, this is where this function probably is a bit more useful. You can drag down from the right hand corner holding the left mouse button, and you could generate quickly all of your invoice numbers quite easily. And this, this text, this invoice, this first part could have been anything that you wanted, and it would just generate all the invoice numbers for you very quickly. This is a nice little feature. I'm going to undo that and just leave the 3 invoice numbers here. And imagine if we generated these invoices and these are the dates. Another thing I like to do is, sometimes you may want to put these fields left aligned or right aligned. You can use the alignment tool here, just because I've got the invoice numbers on this side and I've got the dates on this side. They're sitting very close together. It's not really going to matter how much I move or shape this column, the width, either one, it's always going to be on the left hand side. So let's move these invoice numbers to this side, and we're going to use this right align. Then it's a bit clearer that these are the dates and these are the invoice numbers, or you could push them to the left if you wanted to. You could have everything to the left here. Then there's a nice gap in between, and you can see everything a bit more clearly. In the description, I'm just going to make something up, so we can just say so we could say we did a job and it was some artwork for a flyer, and this one might be something to do with website design, and this one here might be something to do with music production, for example. Now, these descriptions can, be a better, to be honest. I'm just putting some samples in here. So you can write a longer description describing exactly what this invoice was for. We've got the price here, but clearly, thinking about this now, we've got something missing. We've got the date, we've got the invoice number, we've got a description, but who are we invoicing? It doesn't tell us which company we're going to be invoicing. So we're going to insert another column. So I'm going to right click on this E and then click insert column, and it's going to give me this blank column here, and here I'm going to put company name, and underneath I'm just going to make a company name up. I'm going to call it, you know, just XYZ company, and it might be different companies. You're not going to be invoicing the same company all the time, so you can do 1, 2, 3 company and ABC company. So these are just 3 made up company names. Now we've got this price column. I'm just going to save this. We've got this price column, and here we're going to put in some value. Depends if which currency you're dealing with, but we're going to be using pound values in here, and we're going to highlight these 3 cells. We're going to right click and format cell. In fact, what we do, we know that this is always going to be a price column, so we're going to click on the E up here. It's going to highlight the whole column. Then we're going to right click and format cell, and we're going to go to currency, and we've got different versions of currencies here. If you right click here, if you click on this drop down menu, you can select other types of currencies. I'm pretty sure whatever you're using can be found in here somewhere. We're using British pounds. Typically when you install openoffice, you should detect what type of language settings you're using, and it should really default these language settings for you. But if not, you need to click on the drop down menu. I'm just going to stick with the default currency. It shows it shows the right sort of format down to the penny. That seems to be okay. So I'm going to click OK here, and I'm going to put a price in here, and it might have been £55, and this one might have been 195, and this one might have been £95. So we've got 3 values in here, and we've got the companies, we've got a description, we've got invoice number, and we've got the dates. So we've only got a little bit of data in here. We've only got 3 rows of data, and typically if you're running a business, you'll be adding more data to this spreadsheet, or it doesn't exactly have to be this data here. It could have been something else as well. It could have been your turnover for your quarter, it could be your daily or your weekly sales figures, or whatever it might be in this spreadsheet, so you could do some calculations afterwards. But in this example, I just want to quickly generate some more dates. These are not real dates, these are just made up dates, but we can imagine these are all the dates. I want to quickly generate some invoice numbers. Now we've got 29 invoices sent out, and I'm just going to copy this data. I'm just going to replicate it down the page. I'm selecting the first 3 here. I'm pressing Ctrl C on the keyboard, or you can go to edit, copy. If you remember the shortcut Ctrl C, is much easier on the keyboard. So I can select with my mouse these 3 here, Ctrl C, and then if I want to paste it, I select the cell and then press Ctrl V, or you can do edit, paste, but remember Ctrl V is much easier. So I'm going to move down the spreadsheet and paste this information in. It's just some sample descriptions, we can say, and these are all the descriptions, and it's really these prices that I want to fluctuate, so we can do some work with them afterwards. I don't want it to all be the same sort of money, so we're just going to put some made up prices in here as well, and then we're going to do some work with the data that we have in here. So we can just copy a few of these and paste them down. Just going to randomize it a little bit. So I'm just going to keep cutting and pasting this data down, and then just going to save this data. So now we have a spreadsheet with a list of dates, some invoice numbers, a description, company name, who we're going to be invoicing in this example, and the price of what these invoices were, the total price. So imagine if this was your first month of business and you wanted to work out, for example, how much did you earn during that month. There's some there's some features and some tools on openoffice that help you to calculate these things. You don't want to sit there with a calculator adding all of these up. There's quicker ways of doing this, and the easy way is to select the blank cell just below the last figure. So this is the last figure. You'll select this blank cell here, and then you can click on this tool here. It's the sum tool. So when you click on that, it's gonna recognize that the numbers going up finish here. This is no longer a number here, so it's going to select and highlight that, and it's going to tell us that it's selected. If you look carefully, the sum equals E2 to and it's going to add up E2 to E30. So this is column E, this is row 2. So E2 is this cell here, 55 cell, all the way down to the 30 cell. You can see that here, E30. This is like an automatic calculation. We call this a formula, but there's just one simple button. Click there to get access to this formula. Once that's done, you can click the green arrow, hit enter key, and it's going to give us a grand total. It's going to say during this period here, this particular period, you generated this amount at the end. So now we can easily and quickly see how much we've generated. This is a nice simple feature to use in OpenOffice Calc. So I'm going to delete that. That's just one small feature we have. I'm just going to save this. Another feature that's quite nice is something called auto filters. So with auto filters, it allows us to select from this column, for example, the company XYZ. So we can see there's 1, 2, 3 and ABC, and there's XYZ. So if we wanted to say, you know, during this period, how much did we invoice just to XYZ company, we can use auto filters to filter out XYZ only, and then do our calculation, and we'll see how much we've billed to this particular company in this example. So the way to do this is to select the first row and go to Tools, Data, Filter, and then Auto Filter. And when you do that, it says the range does not contain column heading. Do you want the first line to be used as a column heading? You can say yes. This becomes the column heading. Some of these fields are not valid. These are other fields. These are blank fields. But it's this company field here. When we select the drop down menu, really what the software has done is it looked down all of these columns here and it's found all the unique ones. So it's looked at all of them and it said, well, I can only find XYZ, 1, 2, 3 and ABC. The other ones are just repeats of this. So when we select in the drop down menu XYZ company, it's going to show me only XYZ from all of the data. So you can see the row numbers where XYZ was located, the invoice, but now we've only got the information here in the price column for that particular company. So we can go and do that sum figure again, and we can hit enter, and we can see 1,991. That was how much we billed to this particular company within that period. So that's another nice feature. I use auto filters quite a lot in more complex spreadsheets. We'll see these tools being used later in other tutorials in more complex ways. This is just a nice simple example for you to understand. If you notice, there's a blue arrow here, and that's just telling us that this filter is currently active. This helps us to understand, this filter is being used. So if we want to undo that, we can click all, and then we'll be back to our original spreadsheet. And we might select a different company like ABC. I mean, we can do the same process again and find out how much we billed ABC for this particular period. I must stress that the data in these columns can be anything that you want. It doesn't have to be invoices and stuff like this. It could be any type of information, as long as you can have a row of data that's relevant and there's something to filter by, then you can use these auto filters. It works perfectly fine. Typically things will run in date order or invoice number. They'll run in those type of sequences. I'm just going to save this document. So I'm going to actually remove the auto filter, data filter. I'm going to re-click on the auto filter. I'm going to get rid of that. We don't need that anymore. And sometimes in spreadsheets you actually want to highlight certain information. So let's imagine if we added another column here, and this column here could be called paid. I'm just going to make it bold, and I'm going to right align it. Well, I'll leave it left align. Can leave it like that. And this column really tells us whether these invoices have been paid, and really we should put another column here telling us when they've been paid. So we can, let's just say for example, put paid date, and we're going to make that bold as well. So in this column we just need two simple things: whether the invoice has been paid. So it's just going to be either a no or a yes. That's all we want to know, whether this invoice was paid or not, so that we know if we have to chase someone, then we know we've got to do that in this example. So I'm gonna Control C, copy this cell and paste it down and say all of these have been paid. I'm going to Control C this one and highlight and say no, and maybe a couple of these in between I'll make yeses as well. And I'm going to select a few more and just paste them down. This is just random. And now we have a column telling us which ones have been paid and which ones haven't been paid. But if we look, if we look down this column, it's still a bit difficult to see clearly what's going on. So what I like to do is use some colors. There's some features in this spreadsheet that allow you to highlight certain columns or fields of data in certain colors, so you can easily see at a glance, much quicker what's been paid, what hasn't been paid, where you need to focus your eye rather than looking down here. So typically the easy way to do this is to, if you left click on this number 2 and then drag all the way down, you'll highlight all of the rows of data. And in here we've got a tool, it's called the background color, and we're going to set the background color as default to blue. So blue tells us that it hasn't been paid. So now what we need to do is select columns 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, keep going down, and all of these we can see these are all yeses, these have been paid. And we're going to go back to this same tool and click this green option. You can click any color you want, but I think green is good. Green tells us it's been paid and blue tells us it's not been paid. So we're going to highlight the other ones. We can do these one by one, it's not going to take long. And it just helps us visually see what's been paid and what hasn't been paid. There's still a bit of missing data here, we'll do that in a second. And clearly we need this paid date, but I think this column's probably in the wrong place. Really, this one we could change to invoice date. So this is the date that we sent the invoice out, and in between here we want the paid date column, so we can quickly see when it was paid and when we invoiced and when we paid. So I want to take this column and really put it here. And the easy way to do that is to click on the G. We can right click and we can say cut, and then we can go to here on the B column, right click, and we say insert column, and then we can right click again and paste. Then we get a paid column in here. We can delete this. So we can right click on this H column and delete it, we don't need it. And then we can get all our colors back in sequence here. And in this paid date column, we're going to click on the B cell and we're going to format it also to a date. So we're going to say that it's going to be this date format here. Now, to make this spreadsheet correct, factually correct, we would need to make sure that the dates of the invoice date and the paid date would always be after this invoice date or on the same date. So we sent the invoice out on the 12th and it got paid on the 12th. Or this one actually hasn't been paid yet, it's blue. So we can select these green ones and we can paste them here. So we can say we invoiced on the 14th and it got paid on the 14th. We invoiced on the 15th, but it didn't get paid till the 17th. We invoiced on the 16th and it got paid on the 16th, 17th, and it got paid on the 20th. Invoice on the 18th, got paid on the 21st. So these dates might fluctuate. These ones might not be in sequence because you invoice on a certain day, they may not pay for 7 or 14 days or whatever it might be. So I'm just going to copy the other ones across. Now we have a spreadsheet which helps us to understand what date we sent the invoice on, what was the invoice number for reference, what description, what was the actual work that was done. This will be detailed more inside the actual invoice itself, but you can you can write as much detail in here as you like. Which company did we invoice and how much for? And we know it's blue, so in our minds we can say, well, this invoice hasn't been paid, and we can see we can see that clearly here as well. It's been marked as no, but let's just say it got paid today. It's been some time, the 12th. We've done some chasing and someone's paid the invoice and they happen to pay it on the 21st of of the 7th, 2013. We can type that data in, we'll select that particular row, make it green because it's been paid, and then we just turn this one into a yes. So now we have a spreadsheet, you know, we're building data into this spreadsheet, and we've got more and more concise information, and we can use this now. So we could use an auto filter again, and we could work out which ones have been paid and which ones haven't been paid. So let's try that as an example. We can select this first row, and we can go data filter, auto filter, and we can go to the paid column, and we can say which invoices haven't been paid. No. Now we've got a list of companies, a list of invoice numbers and dates that we sent them, and how much it was for, and who we need to chase, so we can chase up these invoices if they're overdue. And we can clearly see, if we click yes, during this period from the 12th to the 8th of August, we can see how many were paid, and we can get a more of an accurate figure if we use this function. If we click on this cell down here, we can see that we actually generated £3,616. So when we select all here, the actual amount we invoiced during that period was greater. It was almost double that amount, but we didn't get paid on everything within this particular period, we could say. So this is just a basic example of how to use Office Calc. There's many features up here. There's things like designing graphs and charts, and there's so many different features to go through. It's difficult to try and go through everything in one tutorial, but this is just a basic overview to help you get kick-started, just to give you a general understanding. In the next set of tutorials, I'm going to be going more in depth. I'm going to be looking at certain specific elements and really defining those much more clearly, and how to create custom formulas to help you generate other types of data, and how to create charts and so forth. So the last thing we should really do is save our document, and I'm going to close this down. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and keep an eye out for more DCP web tutorials.